Papua New Guinea is home to one of the most lethal snakes in the world. Every year, the Papuan taipan kills up to 1,000 people. Especially vulnerable are those living in remote valleys and isolated villages. Once bitten, the only hope for survival used to be an expensive antivenom, beyond the reach of most victims. But all that may be about to change. I'm Steve Chow. On this episode of 101 East, we venture into the wilds with Papua New Guinea's life-saving snake man.
In their hunting ground on the coastal grasslands, 14-year-old Tua Varaya and his brother Junior scour the canopy for prey. But it's beneath their feet where they should be looking. They've hardly worn shoes in their lives. And sharing this ground is the Papuan taipan, a deadly creature of stealth.
The snake bit me. He just went, he disappeared and he just.
Tua catches only a brief glimpse of the snake as its fangs stab his left ankle. He feels fine at first, but the venom is already beginning to destroy his nervous system. His brother's flimsy tourniquet is of little use. He could die without urgent medical help.
Pain is coming up, like it goes into my body. So I didn't feel good. I'm trying to fall down like that. My head is turning. So I see enough of hunting.
Tua and his brother return home, and their auntie now administers traditional first aid.
We get the bark of the tree, peel it off, and then we give the person the snake is bitten. He must drink the juice of the tree.
It's a waste of precious minutes. Soon Tua is spitting blood. The venom is attacking tissue in his respiratory system.
When he spits blood. So the only way, we have to take him to the hospital. He was already weak. His eyes were already turning. And we were so worried that I thought we were going to lose him.
Fortunately, Tua lives only an hour from Port Moresby General Hospital. He arrives seriously ill.
The poison is still working to my body, so I think I'm going to die.
So, what's the story with this guy?
The young boy finds himself in the care of an Australian reptile handler turned research scientist and clinical expert, a man simply known in this country as the Snake Man.
Tua was a fairly sick little boy when he first arrived here. Had he not had effective treatment, he would have got much, much worse.
This hospital often sees 3 or more snakebite patients a day. But what made Tua's arrival remarkable was the treatment he was about to receive. On trial here is a new antivenom devised by Dr. Williams and his team. It has the potential to save thousands of lives in coming years.
He was the 3rd patient that we recruited, and he was the first child we recruited, so I guess we were all fairly nervous. But we were very fortunate, he had a very remarkable recovery after antivenom. His blood clotting ability returned to normal within less than 24 hours, and in fact, he went home 24 hours after he arrived here.
I'm feeling good, happy. So we came back.
Tua's rapid recovery and the early success of the trial made David Williams and his team realise they were onto something. But they knew to make a profound difference, their new antivenom had to be made available outside of Port Moresby and in isolated village clinics where most of the snakebite victims came. This is David Williams' company car. Papua New Guinea's Snake Man is also a paramedic and ambulance driver, retrieving snakebite victims when they can't get to him. He's lived here for the past 15 years. It's been a long and bumpy journey on his single-minded mission to save victims of a deadly snake.
So we're not that far out of Port Moresby, actually, but it seems like we're in the middle of nowhere.
Well, we may as well be in the middle of nowhere because civilization basically ends in terms of infrastructure once you leave the city limits.
So what are the difficulties for snakebite victims if you're bitten out here?
Well, transport is the big problem because vehicles can be few and far between, but people generally will have to walk quite long distances to get to a health centre, anywhere between 5 and 15 kilometres. We could probably prevent 80% of all snake bites in this country, but the reality is people can't afford footwear, so they're barefoot all the time. And that means they walk quietly. The snakes don't realise that people are walking nearby them until it's too late.
Okay, I just want to give a small demonstration.
The team members who work with Williams are as multi-skilled as their boss. Protégé Owen Paiva is a science master's student with a sense of duty to educate people here on the danger of snakes.
What we teach you, you can go and teach your families. And so when you apply, put some pressure on it. What this will do is just keep the poison there. And then you have like 3 hours or something like that. Enough.
In a country where superstitions are ingrained, Owen is determined to demystify the fearsome creature that shares a home with these villagers.
It's always this thing of black snakes have certain powers. When asked, it's sort of, oh yeah, he got bitten because he did something wrong. And so the sorcerer turned into a snake, and a black snake, and visited him along on a footpath going to the garden or so. And those beliefs are quite strongly held. First aid for snake bite. So when there's something lo okay, so snake kay kami lo bus. So you know what Ben did? So you usually set the soul. But they didn't.
Owen's other great challenge is to debunk the belief in traditional first aid remedies. False hope for a victim can be fatal.
Somebody might get bitten and the relatives gave bark for them to chew on and waited for an hour or 2 hours, which is ample time enough for venom to start acting and having an effect on the person. By the time which is too late to come to hospital, there's no evidence that suggests that they do work at all, and if they do appear to work, it's most probably because the person has been bitten by a non-venomous snake.
The proper term for it is ophthalmoplegia, okay? That means that their eyes are paralysed.
Joining this first aid road trip is a visiting Australian-based emergency doctor, Simon Jensen, who's also involved in the trial. He's here to teach health professionals from the district some resuscitation techniques.
So your hand here then is holding the mask tightly on the patient's face, and if you can, you're doing a jaw thrust as well. You use your fingers like this to actually open up.
Is there any way of knowing just how many people might be bitten every year?
Well, realistically, at the present time, no, there's not. We just don't know. There's probably somewhere between 150 and 200 people dying in health facilities, but for every person who dies in a health centre, there are 5 more that died outside of the health centre. So the number really could be as high as 800 to 1,000.
To understand the danger that lurks outdoors, I've come indoors to a secure building they call the Snake House. It's home to several dozen of the most lethal snakes on Earth.
Hold that down firmly, Ben.
David Williams is training Owen and other staff in the art of milking.
You happy, Owen, with your grip? The venom's produced in very large quantities, and it's a very fast, large snake. It's prone to bite more than once, and the more times it bites, the higher each successive amount of injected venom will be.
Go for your life. No, it's yours, it's yours.
You'd probably kill 100, 200 people with that without any trouble. It's almost as if the crankier the snake gets, the more venom it's going to deliver.
Taipan venom is the essential ingredient of this new antidote. Once extracted, it's shipped to a laboratory in Costa Rica, where David's research partners produce antivenom and send it back. His team of new snake milkers know that one day they might need a dose themselves.
They understand the risks, and I think they're incredibly brave for being willing to learn how to do it properly.
2, 3.
And to carry it on. So, I think the time has come to step back and let them do it.
Together, they're tackling an entirely preventable affliction, a misfortune often ignored by public health officials because this is a sickness that can't be passed on. But to a young David Williams, the reptile was always a creature of fascination, not fear.
I was told that my first contact with snakes was when I was about 3, and I was certainly keeping snakes from about the age of 8 years old onwards. But to come here and stay in a village where in the space of a week 4 people died of snake bite and there was nothing that could be done, I suppose really sort of made me want to stick my neck out and do something about it.
There's always room for one more taipan in the snake house. And today Owen Paver is taking me on a catching expedition into the bush.
Seeing something bossy?
Yeah. He tells me the snake with the big fangs and large reservoir of potent venom can also display aggression.
What do they do when they see you?
For the taipans, if they see you first, they want to attack.
They want to attack?
Yeah. It's easily provoked. Doesn't take much to get it, going and wanting to attack or strike.
I don't know how you'd see them here.
The sheer number of snakes found in Papua New Guinea is astounding. In some parts of this South Pacific nation, there can be 50 or 60 snakes to the hectare. But finding a taipan when you want one can be unpredictable at best.
Snake. Get it, it's a taipan. No. Furina, mildly venomous. It's a Furina tristis. This is something we need for a research project that we're trying to do.
And in this jumble of junk, the grass conceals another surprise.
Taipan, taipan. Taipan. Here. Let's rubber from that one.
But persistence pays, and eventually Owen and his fellow snake catcher Ben are able to show me a taipan catch.
Sheet of tin there. Oh, there's a snake. Ben, snake. I got one. Oh, he's biting everything. Oh. We have each other's back all the time. If someone's not able to carry out a certain duty, any one of us can step in and help out here.
Taipans just seem to roll with the punches. They learn to hide under bits of rubbish we leave lying around, or they live in burrows in the ground that rats make when they come around, people's gardens.
1, 2, 3, go.
They just tend to do really, really well around humans.
David Williams is probably better than anyone at this job, but catching snakes in the name of science is one task that these days he's happy to delegate.
How many times have you been bitten?
I've had 6 snake bites in 30 years, and I've had adverse reactions to at least 4 of those. So, like I said, we realise that the next one probably will be the last.
Well, I remember bite number 6 very well. We have a bit of history in that area.
It was 7 years ago when I first met David Williams. I was filming with an Australian television team when I saw him wrangling the biggest taipan I'd ever seen.
Okay.
You right?
It's gone now, big bit.
And so began our dash to save his life.
Get the bandages out of the boot. Come on, hurry, guys.
Within a minute or so, he has trouble breathing.
Tight.
His blood pressure drops.
And another bandage starting higher up.
Yep.
We need to get a move on.
Yep.
We're heading back to Port Moresby General Hospital.
On the road, David Williams is lapsing into unconsciousness. We arrive in emergency, our patient in desperate need of medical help. His life is saved by Australian Taipan anti-venom. At more than $2,000 a vial, it is a precious commodity, and this is the last dose in the hospital.
I think probably the difference between you talking to me now and you not talking to me now, without it, you might have been giving a eulogy.
Well, it was just one of those days that, you know, I suppose you probably wish you could do over. But we had a snake in the bag that we thought was, you know, nice and docile and wasn't going to give us any trouble. And just when you think you know these animals, they throw a surprise at you. So this is the Australian product that's been in use here since the 1950s. It's a very good product. The only real problem is it costs more than $2,000 US a vial, and P&G just can't afford to buy enough of it for everybody.
David's near-death experience propelled him to devise a new, cheaper anti-venom, and one that doesn't need refrigeration, so it can be kept at the many remote clinics which are without electricity. It's a venture between the University of Melbourne and Papua New Guinean collaborators.
This one is the new anti-venom that we've developed, and if this product passes the current clinical trials and goes into general use, it could be supplied to the Papua New Guinean government for about $150 US a vial.
Making it less valuable will also take away the motivation for theft. It's a chronic problem here. The expensive anti-venom is routinely stolen from government stores and from the hospital itself.
I would think it'd certainly be less profitable to steal a much lower priced product than it is to steal one that's really expensive.
The story of this small boy is a powerful reminder of what happens when snake anti-venom is unaffordable and inaccessible. Near Warmer Village, northwest of Port Moresby, 1-year-old Andrew walks awkwardly with his cousin and carer. His legs are deformed. 7 months ago, Andrew's mother Hepatua held him as she gathered mustard seed in the bush near their home. She had little hope of seeing the snake in the tall grass. The taipan struck her several times. Hepatua headed towards home, where she knew other villagers could help her. An elder told me of her final hours.
When she recognized that she was bitten by the snake, she knew that she must go to somewhere and raise an alarm that somebody must rush her down to the hospital or the nearest clinic or aid post.
The venom had a catastrophic effect on Hepatua's nervous system. She tried in vain to reach villages she could see further along the riverbank, but collapsed on top of baby Andrew, crushing his legs.
So when friends came, they saw that she fell off. So they got the baby out of her arms. She was already numb. By the time coming to the aid post, she was already, half of her life was already covered by the venom. So she could not respond even. The jaws have already fallen, the eyelids have already fallen.
I'm travelling with David to the local village clinic, where Andrew's mother arrived critically ill.
So this is classic snake country?
This is perfect taipan country, actually. This sort of kunai grass, semi-open forest is very good habitat for taipans. It's also where people like to build their gardens. And unfortunately, the gardening attracts rats and mice, which is taipan's main food. It's just a recipe for disaster.
So what are the difficulties for snakebite victims if you're bitten out here?
Well, here in this part of Papua New Guinea, probably fewer than half of the health centres have got ambulances, and they rely on the goodwill of people in the community or people passing by on a road to be willing to stop and take a patient all the way into town.
What kind of condition was she in by the time she arrived here?
Realistically, she was probably only a few minutes from dying. She had already collapsed and had obstructed her airway, so she was in big trouble.
So once she arrived here, what did she really need to help her?
She needed antivenom and she needed airway management.
But remote clinics like this one rarely keep the expensive Australian antivenom. So why can't the existing antivenom be stocked here?
There's no refrigeration here. Their solar power lasts for about 2 hours, so they can turn on a light at night for a little while, but that's it.
Could your new antivenom be kept here?
Yes, certainly. We're looking at a product that'll be stable at room temperature, so it could be kept here with any of their other drugs.
Andrew's too young to understand now, but what will you say to him about what happened to his mother once he gets older?
It will be sad to tell him, but then we will tell him, as he has to know what really happened to his mother.
Back in Port Moresby, another victim of the Papuan taipan is in emergency care. Walter was out chopping wood when he was bitten. He slashed his legs with a razor in the mistaken belief it would bleed out the venom. He's also trialling the new antivenom and is responding remarkably well. So what made him a good candidate for your trial?
Well, the main thing is that he's presented early, so when he came in, he's still walking, talking and able to breathe. And what we're trying to measure is whether the antivenom will prevent people from getting airway and breathing problems. So if they already have them, it's no point.
So before the trial, before you developed the antivenom, what kind of scenario would he have faced here at the hospital?
It was quite common for there to be periods when there was no antivenom available at all, and in some of those cases, patients would die. So you comfortable sitting like that, Walter? Do you want me to put the bed back down? We're just waiting on the 18-hour samples now, and although he's got a little bit of minor paralysis of his eyelids, makes it hard to open his eyes. Nobody's ever died of that. So all things being well, Walter will go home tomorrow. All right, so you just rest easy for the time being, and we'll come back and check on you later.
I revisit now Karingu, whose young nephew Tua was saved by David Williams in the early stage of the trial. She now collects snakes caught by other villagers and claims to have mastered her own technique of catching them.
I get a stick, I push it down like this, I put the other stick under the snake's body, and then quickly put it in the bag. It's done.
And then what?
And then we call the doctor, and the doctor comes, picks the snake up.
Isn't it dangerous to be catching snakes?
Yes, very dangerous. I used to tell them, if you don't want to be bitten, leave it alone.
It's up to them.
Up to them. Just leave it. I can catch them myself. You don't want to be bitten, okay. Just let them go because I don't want to get the blame if you die. That's what I tell them.
So we'll go and see what snake she's got for us and find out where she caught it and what she's done to get it into a bag. G'day, how are you? We try to encourage them to be as safe about it as they can, but generally I would prefer that if anyone's going to stick their neck out, it's our own people. Right. Well, let's have a look at it. Ben, if you want to open that plastic box and just put it on the ground, I'll just empty the bag.
It's a small data.
Okay, and where did you get that from?
Up on the mountains.
Okay.
So what do you think of Dr. David's work?
Very fine. He's a good person. He's doing fine. I think he's saving so many snake bite people around here.
For young Tua, it's a case of once bitten, twice shy. He's learnt his lesson and now wears his school shoes when he hunts. They're his only pair, but Tua knows they could well save his life. Well, you go to the countryside, all the villagers know who you are, you know you're Dr. David, the snake man. Is that gratifying?
No, not really. I mean, gratifying is when you have a child wheeled in on a stretcher and a family that obviously think that child is going to die any minute, and 24 or 48 hours later you're able to say goodbye to them and send them home. And I think that's probably more gratifying than anything I've done.
In some parts of this country, snakes kill more people than malaria and all communicable diseases combined. Yet these snakebite deaths are entirely preventable. David Williams hopes his new antivenom will be officially approved and manufactured locally within a couple of years. It will mean the people of Papua New Guinea can take responsibility for dealing with their own affliction. While these new snake men put their lives on the line, David knows this reptile better than anyone and understands what one more bite would mean.